This is a video recording of the presentation to the Facility User Network on March 26, which will be our second presentation on codes and standards to the Facility User Network. We're recording this in advance for the Executive Committee because we're using a cloud-based software that makes collaboration much easier, but it's new to most people. As this is being recorded a week before the fun meeting, it's likely it's going to change, but not a lot. It's just enough to give the Executive Committee a sense of where we're going. I'll be setting the context for standards advocacy overall, and then Brian will be giving us a specific example of a unit of many dimensions where standards advocacy has led to value-add opportunities that all units should be taking advantage of. Brian keeps me informed about the state action. He's been frank about some of the concepts that my national work groups have been proposing to standards developers, such as the NFPA and the ICC. He's also been been active in the ACUHO committees that deal with public policy. I'll let him explain that in a minute. But as such, he has a valuable perspective on the requisite time frames and the relationships that are necessary to be effective in the standard space. He's also getting an education doctorate, and I like to say that he has a valuable point of view simply because he's buying what we're selling. He's also worked with some state institutions that are smaller, such as Eastern, and to understand how other organizations interact with the state and the regulatory agencies is different than the way U of M is able to do it. So I think that's also a valuable point of view. The discussion about total cost of ownership doesn't easily flow into a discussion about how standards fundamentally govern it. I'm going to show you a diagram here that we use to try to describe what we're trying to get to when we deal with codes and standards. And I'm going to try to get my machine to move here to the next slide. We often think of this as our iconic slide that tries to give in one-eye shot what we see as end users, but what's happening below here is far more complicated and moves very quickly. So where industries see reduced revenue, industries such as ours, that we have to manage well. Clearly we've been managed well, but we also have to innovate. Innovation is closely linked with standardization, as we try to headline our MADE website. We'll get to that in a minute. You might think of standardization as the reciprocal of innovation. By standardizing, we remove wasteful behaviors, we avoid destructive competition, we establish the broad contours of general agreement, and thereby we open markets for what I like to call leading practice discovery. All of these forces are affected by the invisible hand of standardization. If you will, that's the invisible hand is referring to a concept advanced by classical economist Adam Smith. So we'll have a 3-minute video clip to help me explain to you, and then it'll be my privilege to have Brian take over. He's one of our associate directors of student life and housing, and he understands what we've been doing, and he'll present the point of view of his point of view about what we've been doing and how we discover leading practice through standards engagement.
Noticed or unnoticed, standards are part of our lives. We've learned to characterize us by the environment. As a rule, steps always have the same height. We're all familiar with the paper format A4 that is in line with manual EN ISO 216. Even when it's dark, we can easily find light switches because they are at a standard height. Following the most important game in the world, football, standards play an important
apart from the fact that uh, apart from the fact that we have our own sustainability, I sometimes call it a zeitgeist in the United States, we do have to acknowledge that other parts of the world, Europe has been far ahead in this. Uh, their history, their political history, their resources, they're much closer to that. So many of their practices are ones that we needed to copy here. But that's a different conversation. Two other things I wanted to bring to your attention before Brian takes over here, and it's that a statement was made that there was a statement made that the Austrian one of the Austrian manufacturers was leading the market. That's an important statement. If you are leading the standards development, typically your market or your organization is able to control the conversation to some degree. At least you know about it earlier, and that would certainly be the case for the University of Michigan, who's been in this space longer and more effectively than anyone. So that can be a larger discussion maybe later on. So here's my colleague Brian. I have him here as he's been present helping us bring us to our attention many issues that have come across regarding how we keep our students safe in residence facilities. So what I'm going to do is turn the show over to Brian, and you can go for it, Brian.
Good morning. My name is Brian Fitzgerald. I'm Associate Director of Housing Facilities here at the University of Michigan. I wouldn't claim that I was an expert on facilities. I tend to take an organizational dynamic approach, but I'm here to talk to you a little bit about housing and standards. So in the U.S. we have national standards along a whole array of areas. What we don't have is a national university, unless you count the service academies or the typologies generally associated with rankings. For example, the University of Michigan is considered a national university with the highest Carnegie classification. Next. At the state level, privates or private colleges and universities organize themselves individually or in associations. Publics may or may not across the state. Think SUNY, which is the state university system of New York, UCal, Cal State, etc. In Michigan, publics have a degree of constitutional autonomy. Next. For colleges and universities, including privates, if you take the money, which generally means financial aid money or grant money, you have to follow many rules, regs, and laws. For housing facilities, this prominently includes various titles, the Clery Act, ADA, and FHA. So the quick quiz for the group is, what is the difference between a service animal and a comfort and therapy animal? Well, a service animal is governed under ADA. It includes dogs and miniature horses. Comfort and therapy animals are governed under FHA and can include a whole host of animals. Housing standards. Housing, also known as housing and residence life in the field, takes many shapes and forms across the country and beyond. Unlike the private sector, housing and residence life organizations need to provide things outside of a roof over the head, such as programming, educational support, and a bit of in loco parentis. Next. At universities, the HRL has typically been located in the Student Affairs Division. At U of M, it is in Student Life. These organizations have also found a home in other divisions, like Enrollment Management, Business and Finance, and Academic Affairs, and permutations of all of these. Next. Housing and Residence Life have many professional associations. The first two I'm previewing are ACPA and NASPA. These tend to have administrative and programmatic focus. Next. Some have a business focus, including NACUS and the Kubo. Next. And I'm a member of what I consider the most comprehensive housing professional organization, ACUHO-I, which is the Association of College and University Housing Officers International. It's multi-focused and includes facilities, construction and renovation, conferences, public policy, and all the res life stuff. Next. Housing and residence life organizations have what I would call two main types. A split system, where the educational and programmatic functions is separated from the business and operational side, and the CHO may or may not report to the same executive officer, the CHO being the Chief Housing Officer. In a unified system, where all functions fall under the same CHO and under the same executive officer. Some large unified systems show traits of a split system because of the specialization of each area. I would include the University of Michigan in that group. Internal factors include the orientation of the institution and even the department, usually brought forth in their mission statement or their value statement. The Chief Housing Officer. It largely depends on the priorities of this person to set the direction of the HRL organization, where it fits in the organization, which I mentioned briefly before, in terms of the division or area it reports to. The size. Size brings a whole lot of bearing on how this type of organization operates. Whether the facility services are wholly internal or external or somewhere in between. Who provides these services? Does an HRL provide them themselves or subscribe, perhaps from a physical plant? And its connections to other related areas, including dining, conferences, and IT. Next. There are many standards in housing: programmatic and educational, staffing, operational administrative, ethics, facilities. Facilities tend to be drawn from professional associations previously listed, especially ACUHO-I, plus APA and the Council for the Advancement of Standards. And sometimes these standards compete. Again, as we look at facility standards, mostly from APA and ACUHO-I, and internal partners, such as the physical plant. They tend to be driven by associations and code, especially at the state and local level. This can vary by state depending on how universities are governed. There's many competing commitments in housing, alliances with internal constituents and external, including other state institutions, typically in the public realm. What may work well for one or two institutions in the state may not work well for others. Example, U of N and MSU versus EMU and CMU. This difference is based almost totally on size and the economy of scale of the universities. Housing staff that work with standards have to take this into account, as well as their own departmental colleagues and agendas. Professional housing organizations face some of the same competing commitments and have to serve member institutions of all sizes. And the committee members who populate the facility services committees on these groups are also put in the same bind. The result, slow-paced, focused on process. But for housing and residence life, that is a reality.
Okay, well, thanks very much, Brian. I don't think anything that you said there wasn't touched in some fashion by a standard of some sort. We prefaced Brian's presentation with a fairly good presentation of how standards are very often hidden, and what we have to understand and what we've tried to do here more recently is generally focus on the facility, the infrastructure. I will tell you that there's a whole other dimension to the standards advocacy, which involves management standards, financial standards, that's likely another presentation because plant operations is fundamentally dealing with our physical facilities, that we focused on that. But you might have heard of ISO 9001, for example. That's a management standard, and in certain markets that's very important. It's a very important benchmark that many organizations have to follow if they're going to get public money, for example. So it would be another discussion to talk about how the management standards and financial as well as administrative, managerial, how they all figure all into this. But I think what Brian's presented here is he's given you a few glimpses of how standards are just below the surface of what they do every day. And what I'm trying to bring to your attention is that we have the ability to control the conversation on that. So what we've done, and this is an update on where we were last year. We've actually connected our facilities user network website to the Office of the Executive Director. I will say that it changes nearly every day. So you're able to get to that, hit Guide to Infrastructure Standards here, and you'll get to this page. Now, I'm going to get out of this Prezi at some point, and I'm going to let you see that the actual websites. For the moment, you're looking at the presentation, and what you'll see here is that we have a number of what I call complementary websites. I'm someone who likes not to have my websites too cluttered, and they all have specific purposes. But over here on the left, you'll see what we've tried to do here is become a little bit more sensitive to the individual constituencies within FUN, and by slow degrees you'll begin to see us, you'll start to recognize yourself a little bit more here, but ultimately we're going to be going to a different platform. So for the moment, this website helps the facilities user network understand what we're doing, and they try to find how we can help them do their work and how that can help them communicate. But ultimately, we're rolling it out so that a larger picture comes into view. That's what these are all about here, and you'll see that very shortly when I cut over to the websites themselves. So as I try to say here, I'm emphasizing the point that standards actually, ironically, actually do drive innovation. One of the things that standards do is they attempt to find common agreement so that energy isn't wasted in destructive competition, for example. I say here that we have I call our four canons: safer, simpler, lower cost, longer lasting. I say them every day, sometimes several times a day when people ask me, what do you do? And this is what we do. So I'm going to run through I'll give you the first look at what all the websites look like, and then we'll cut over to, you're going to see them actually running. So this is our Twitter site. This is one that moves by the hour. It's also one that where we have tried to claim the total cost of ownership. You'll begin to see how we can lead, or at least follow or participate in the larger discussion about what total cost of ownership might mean. We have a site where we keep a number of clips. We are actually rather surprised at how much participation there is on this. At the moment, there's nearly 1,200 views in just about 6 months. So everything we do is, a large part of what we do is reported right here. And that's accessible to everyone. Finally, we have what we call our C-suite site. This is the one where we would like the leaders in the industry, the presidents, the AVPs, to understand what we're doing at a larger strategic, national, and global level. So that's what this site is set up for. Was our first site. So what I'm going to do now is cut over and try to make it relevant, and you can see the actual running of the standards, the websites themselves. Brian, do you have any questions, anything to add at the moment? Add or subtract from what I said? Okay, good. So let's go live on the websites, and you'll begin to see our what we like to call our. This is what you'll see at the plant operations level, and if you go to the Office of Executive Director, you will see where the facility user network is. And but I'll skip ahead on that because you've already saw where that link is. Our work site is right here. So we're live on the work site. Every day we try to book one issue that has come over up for comment. So from the 250 odd standards developers, we pick one per day. Roughly there's about 100 issues that come at us every day, but because of our limits, we can only deal with about one per day. I try to break it up so that, for example, we deal with one state level standard or regulatory statement or requirement, and here we're dealing with we'll be dealing with the privatization of the elevator safety division. So this is a state of Michigan issue. Yesterday we dealt with the proposals out there for roadway. I believe it's recycling and road operation. How do you manage waste recycling on roads? This is an ISO standard. We can have a larger discussion about why it's important to follow ISO standards, but that's a different teleconference. Here we're dealing with another ANSI standards developer on mold remediation. I referred this over to our custodial area. Here's ASHRAE. This is actually worth looking into a little bit more closely. ASHRAE just hit us with 19 new proposals, and we're going to have to deal with them in a very short period of time. You've all heard of ASHRAE 90.1, and that's a suite that moves very quickly. Here's IEEE. We're dealing with power system reliability. Here we're dealing with maintenance of water-based fire protection systems. Again, we go back to another cycle. Last week we dealt with international lights and lighting standards. So what you'll see happening every day is we'll pick one out of 100 issues, and you will be aware that there are ways for you to comment on them. We have teleconferences. If you're not able to attend the teleconferences, you have the video clips where you can attend, or you can see what we talked about. We actually have a number of them. For example, this is about wiring methods, and we had 2 or 3 people on this one, and we have 29 views since that time. So we tried. If you're not able to get to the meeting, some of them, the important ones, we let others take a look at. I have to tell you, I always like to stop here and to say how surprised I am at some of the proposals. So this was a proposal, for example, where we dealt with building automation systems. ASHRAE wanted to make us put temperature sensors on the top of every building. And our colleague David Anderson made some successful arguments against that. You know, we did that in August, and we've got 136 views on this one. I'm responsible for at most 2 of those views, but it always surprises me how once we get these ideas out there, how much interest there is. And these are very specific ideas. Obviously, our building control system is the centerpiece of our energy conservation claims. So to have an outsized requirement, one that would cost us the better part of $500,000 per year, it was important. So in any case, you can get to see what's happening in very specific technical specifics with that. Every week we have what we call a focus. A focus. We deal with policy and strategy. We look over what we've done all week, so we go back and we look and say, oh, we dealt with these 5 issues for the week, 5 out of the 500 that we could have dealt with, and we try to reflect a bit on how does our week's work conform to what we regard as our policy and our strategic goals. So last week we did continuous maintenance, and on the continuous maintenance, let's see, and then the week before we did something on incorporation by reference. As you can see, we had only 3 people attend that one, but on March 6th we are up to 29 people are interested in that one. So that's how this one is set up. How this one is set up to work live. And down here, you are able to subscribe to this, and there are some good news here. Now, I will say that because standards action happens at such a very high rate, I'd like to say that we're in the era of streaming regulation, that we have developed a way that's almost ready so that you don't have to see all the standards that are up for public comment that others see. So, for example, if you're interested in, I'm going to try to get to that right now. If you just want to see architectural issues, then I believe we have only architectural issues. So for this one, so I see that it's working. If you only want to deal with fire safety issues, you can go here and you can be just on the fire safety, what I'll call stream of regulations and proposals. You want to deal with telecommunications. Soon you'll see the management and the financial standards on here right now, but I don't think that we're ready to deal with that. We actually have dealt with financials, FASB, I believe. The financial, maybe it's FSAB. You'll probably see that nothing there either. Let's just search on financial. You can search on a keyword here. You can find something. Here we go. It's GASB. I'm sorry. So this is an example of it's not just technical standards. The accountants have their own standards, and we have the ability to comment on them. So I think for the most part, you're going to see me try to develop our categories here closer along the lines of what you've seen in what our legacy site is. I wanted to let you know what a special project we're dealing with at the state level. We're trying to get some of the state codes and standards changed. We'd like to see stronger voice for for the user. That's what we try to make clear over here. Oh, there's another thing I wanted to show you. I think I did show you how we're able to control the discussion about total cost of ownership. My hope is that by having this hashtag that we can expand the discussion. Obviously you've seen that total cost of ownership is a preoccupation in many nations. I think the Dutch have been very keen on that. You'll see that from all over the world, people that are discussing total cost of ownership can come to the Twitter site, and it actually changes with some relative frequency. So I guess this was done here March 18th, yesterday. Somebody made a statement about I guess they're dealing with transportation systems here. So that's where we're at. I hope you'll subscribe and offer comments or let us help you put an innovative idea in front of an ANSI standards developer. I like to say that somehow we got from the Model T to the Cobra GT, and we didn't do it with big, not always with large disruptive changes, but we made a little 0.5% changes many hundreds of thousands of times, and that's how we innovate. And I feel that our industry is in a good position to innovate upon infrastructure technologies if we just do things in small bites, but we do it consistently and at a very high rate. One bit of good news is that what we're doing here does seem to be getting the attention of the nation. Penton Media, that publishes American School and University, they are now going to begin publishing most of what we're doing here, so we may see a broader audience very quickly. We're the only organization that is actually doing strike and bold on regulatory documents. We're also entering into a collaboration with the University of Texas on an ANSI standard for healthcare administration. And so that's a very large, that's a rather large undertaking, as you can imagine. But there appears to be a lot of opportunities for a leading practice discovery in healthcare administration. And so I'll invite you to our weekly policy discussions Friday at 2:30. And I think my hope here is that we'll have a permanent standards advocacy here at the University of Michigan. We basically started it. We'll be able to command global markets like this and meet some of our goals. We're working with a $300 billion industry. I like to say that we're able to move money in $3 to $6 billion chunks. Not everybody takes advantage of that. That's another teleconference. But by moving the industry as a whole, we're able to get a piece of that. And we like to estimate that we've been able to drive about $3 million of value into the university itself. So with that, Brian, anything you want to say in closing?
Nope. Open for questions if we have time.
Good. All right. So we are right at our limit. Again, this is just to give the fun executive committee a look at what we're trying to present. Likely, when we're actually in the room, we'll probably say some things different based on what their questions might be. So for the moment, I hope this helps the executive committee understand where we're going, and I will be closing the clip. And thank you very much to Gerald for giving us the opportunity to slide in here. And we hope that you'll be enlightened and you'll actually enjoy it.